I was contacted by AceMagic, a company that makes a lot of mini PCs. I've actually reviewed a few of their mini PCs. They reached out to me and they asked me if I wanted to review their brand new laptop. This is the AceMagic AX15. This is meant to be a very hyper budget laptop offering from AceMagic, but despite the fact that it's actually really low cost, it actually has a lot of compelling features that you'd get for the price that you're paying on this laptop. I often critique a lot of these OEM kind of business style laptops. Some of them can be really good, ThinkPads, some of the Dell offerings and that. They can be really, really nice if you increase the specs a lot. But sometimes, the base models of these laptops that you look at them and you say, okay, this is a pretty good price on this, Dell Latitude or whatever. But often when you get down to those base models, they're actually kind of not good. Typically the screens are almost unusable on those style laptops. And, the specs are often really bad. Sometimes they ship with like 8 gigabytes of soldered RAM, and there's not much you can do with those laptops. So I mean, the price buy-in might look compelling, but they're not necessarily that appealing if you actually break down the stats. And then of course, we have the whole Chromebook infrastructure, which is fine for kids and learning purposes, but I don't think for anyone who wants to get serious work done, especially a professional or a student or anyone like that, you shouldn't probably be looking at a Chromebook because they are very limited. So this one here is a good option here. 15-inch screen on this laptop. It's meant to be an Ultrabook, so it is, despite the fact that it's a slightly larger laptop, 15-inch, it is quite thin. You can see here, it is a true Ultrabook style laptop, not very heavy. Interestingly, this is all metal. Metal keyboard deck, metal bottom, metal lid. So it's an all metal chassis design. Now this is meant to be a fairly budget offering. It doesn't have the most powerful processor. It has an Intel 12th gen N95 processor. That's going to be a quad core processor. But if you're going to be watching 1080p video, 4K video, doing productivity tasks, multitasking, that processor is going to be more than enough for just day-to-day productivity tasks. And it's still going to beat out some of the offerings that you get in things like Chromebooks anyways. This also does ship with 16 gigabytes of RAM too, and it's not soldered, so you can upgrade this down the road as well. And I think it's actually going to be a pretty interesting video for you guys because despite the fact that this is a very, very low cost offering from AceMagic, it's certainly not a cheap or low quality offering. Okay, let's have a look at the laptop inside here. Fairly robust packaging you can see there. So we have this kind of little sleeve here. That's actually quite nice. Laptop itself right off the bat. So it actually looks pretty good quality. It's all metal. It's 1,600 grams. So you're looking at a little over 3 pounds or so, maybe 3.5 pounds. It's actually all metal though, so that makes sense. Intake there, so you get pretty good airflow hopefully because it's quite large. Rubber feet to raise it up there. So we get a USB-C here, USB-A, HDMI, another USB-C. Nothing on the back, but a nice sleek look there. Right side there, micro SD card, so good for creators, and 2 more USB-A, a slow one and a fast one. So good for, mice and that kind of thing. And then that's going to be good for if you have an external SSD or something like that, and headphone jack. So it's got 2 USB-A, 2 USB-C, micro SD card, and HDMI out. That's pretty good. And it's actually quite thin model. And you can see, the ThinkPad is quite a bit thicker, right? Yeah, when these guys reached out and they asked me if I wanted to review this, I actually said yes because I've reviewed 2 of their mini PCs and they were actually quite nice. So I actually anticipated this thing would be pretty nice. Nice thick material there. And there's a look at the inside of the laptop. It's pretty good looks overall. Top of the deck is metal too, right? The keyboard looks really good. No flex on that. Very good. Overall looks pretty good. Nice, that's a 16:9 aspect ratio. I use 16:10 more frequently, but that's good. So this is the N95. We can see here, Intel N95, which is a low wattage APU. And that's kind of how it's supposed to be. That's totally fine. It won't use a lot of power. It won't have, incredible amounts of processing power. But for day-to-day, watching 4K video, typing up documents, that kind of thing, you're fine. Because it is a quad core, you can see. So that should be fine. Looks like it actually does have 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is quite nice here. So you can see it's not super fast again. But again, this isn't an extremely high-spec machine. It's not supposed to be. Let's see what we got here. SSD, I'm not sure what that is. We'll have to actually have a look at that. Wi-Fi, Realtek, so we'll see how fast that Wi-Fi is there. It's a Realtek Wi-Fi. And then, of course, you just have your integrated graphics. All right, let's have a look inside the laptop. It just takes standard Phillips head screws. Fingernails enough to get inside the laptop there once you take that off. So, like I said before, it's an all-metal chassis. Very simple, just a sheet of metal. But that's going to give it nice structural integrity. And here's a look inside the laptop itself. So a lot of actually support here. So we have our speakers here down firing, which is interesting. So that'll come out of those little side vents. Very interestingly designed speaker you can see there. 38 watt hour battery, so not huge battery. fairly robust for what it is, because again, we're only having an N95 in here. So I'm going to suspect the battery life's going to be good. We'll test it, but I'm going to suspect it's going to be pretty good. That's the motherboard there. So we have a single NVMe, probably just like an OEM, local OEM brand. 512 gigabytes though. Single SODIMM slot. Again, we're not dealing with the most powerful processor here. So if you're going to say, well, it's not in dual channel, I mean, it's an N95. Does it really matter? I'm not exactly sure. You're not going to be gaming on this thing. That should be fine. So 16 gigabytes of RAM should be sufficient for what you're doing with this. Again, this laptop is going to be targeted at like pure productivity tasks, right? Media consumption. So you're going to be watching YouTube, you're going to be consuming media, you're also going to be, typing up essays, doing reports, that kind of thing. That's what this is targeted at. So it doesn't really concern me that it's not dual channel RAM. I tested a mini PC. A lot of times those mini PCs also just have single channel RAM because that's what they're used for. I mean, you're not doing intense video editing or gaming on it, so it's not the biggest deal there. The Wi-Fi there is, I'm not sure what that Wi-Fi is, but it is replaceable. You can see there. So replaceable Wi-Fi, replaceable RAM if you want to upgrade it more, I guess 32 gigabytes or something like that. And then the NVMe there. But interestingly, that's a pretty robust fan. So this is, you get a single heat pipe out of here, and it is just an N95 in here. So that's a pretty decent it's a pretty decent fan there, and it actually doesn't make a lot of noise. So all things in all, it looks not too bad. And I'm actually impressed with the amount of metal. So it's not a super light laptop. It has a lot of metal. Like that's a metal deck underneath the keyboard. And that's why the keyboard feels so strong, like feels so sturdy when you're typing on it, because the whole laptop is metal. So the keyboard is your standard layout, no shenanigans there, just a standard layout keyboard. You do get a full-size numpad, which is interesting out of this laptop here. So standard layout, let's do a little typing test here. Yep, it's fine. It's not going to be, it's not a Lenovo Legion or a ThinkPad keyboard, but actually it feels really snappy. It feels very snappy, actually, all things considered. It kind of reminds me more of a Apple Magic keyboard based on the spacing. You can see the spacing of the keys there. I'll include this part here because I just wanted to see how snappy it is. It's just an N95 processor. It's not a big powerhouse quad-core processor or anything like that. But you can see here that it is reasonably snappy as I'm moving through interfaces in here. It's the same processor I tested on their mini PC, and I didn't find any problems with it. It's a quad-core processor. It's quick enough. It's not meant to be a powerhouse. It's not meant to sit down and edit 4K videos, 3 streams of 4K videos. It's just not designed for that. But overall, they actually feel pretty snappy. These N95 processors, all things considered, they're not bad at all. So let's check out the screen here. So it's a 1080p screen. And interestingly, you can see here you can go actually below 60. So 60 Hz is your standard refresh rate, but you can actually drop it down to 40, which may feel weird. But if you're just typing up a document, having a higher refresh rate does eat up your battery life pretty quick. So it's not going to be a super wide color gamut screen. It's not going to be 100% NTSC or anything like that. This looks actually very similar to the Steam Deck, I would say, in terms of the color range here. It's actually fairly bright, for one thing. So the blacks look pretty good here too. It's a nice IPS screen. There's no bleed here. So I don't know what panel they're using on this, but you can see that there's no IPS bleed at all, right along the edge there. Other side, so good, nice contrast on the screen actually. Yeah, I don't know what they're like. There must be a manufacturer making fairly low cost panels, but the IPS screens have come a long way because these look really actually pretty good. It's more than serviceable. It's not even, serviceable would be like, whatever, I can get by with it. This is actually like decent. Like if you're looking for like a decent screen and you actually want to use it, this looks pretty good. Yeah, I could use this. Right? It's not bad at all. Looks pretty good. Nice and crisp. 1080p, it's not like a 4K screen or anything, but looks pretty good. Check the audio here. Gets loud enough, 75 or so. Yeah, so actually it doesn't sound bad. It's not, there's not tons of bass. It's not going to be MacBook tier or anything like that, but I don't find it any different than some of the typical business laptops that I test on a routine basis. So, I mean, actually the speakers don't sound bad at all. They're actually not bad. Alrighty, let's do some Cinebench here. Not necessarily for the Cinebench scores. We know that this is just an N95, so it's not going to be the most powerful processor. It's not designed for video editing. It's not designed for video rendering, so that's not its purpose. But I do want to hear if this thing makes any noise, because that fan on there is pretty big. That's maxed out there. Temperatures are probably like nothing. Let's see here. Yeah, 50 degrees. To be honest, if anything, the cooling solution, even though it's one heat pipe, is over-designed because the N95 is not a hot chip. Yeah, so we've been running for a minute or two here. There's just like no fan noise at all. That's just the ambient noise floor of my house. Yeah, and it's not going to run hot. So obviously, this is a fairly robust cooling solution for the chip that's in here, the N95. You could cool a much beefier chip with that cooling solution. They probably, just adapt it over. But yeah, so it obviously runs cool and all that. So, it's an N95. We don't need to know what an N95 does. It's not meant for video editing and that kind of stuff. But, for day-to-day use, it's quite good. So you can see here, just general interface. Some people may say, oh, it's slow and laggy. But it's not actually slow and laggy. It just depends what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing video editing or something, like I said, that's not what this is for. But if you're in here and you're doing multitasking, I don't know, you're watching whatever this is here, something, and that's going to play. I'm going to turn it off. And then, you're in here doing interface stuff at the same time. I'm going to navigate through here. Maybe I'm going to write up like a little essay here. What is it? WordPad. Hope if I can type WordPad here so that can play. There's it's playing 4K as well. Come over here, type up an essay. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. You're not going to have any issues with this. So this, what this is for, this type of chip here, is not designed for power users, right? Someone who's going to be in there doing graphic design. That's not the purpose of this laptop. But when it comes to usability in that, it is way more usable than some crappy Chromebook or some super old, busted laptop. It actually feels nice and snappy when you're using interface and that, you're navigating around. It's got a second channel up here. I don't know. We'll go that can do that thing over there, and then let's just go to Google or something, and we'll go to their website, AceMagic. Yeah, like you're not gonna have any issues using this laptop, right? Sometimes people will get sold on, well, it's not fast and you can't do whatever you want with it. Are you going to be doing video editing on your laptop here, or are you going to be using this for something like school or typing up documents or something like that? You're not going to have any issues with it. It has enough power, the N95, to get things done. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so common. The N95 is in all kinds of mini PCs. These guys put it in their mini PCs. All these different companies put them in there, and there's a reason why. And if you move it over to a laptop like this, you're not going to have any issues with this. Let's look at some benchmarks here. So the first scene here is idle. You can see here we're just charging at about negative 4.4 watts, so extremely low discharge rate. We're getting 500 minutes of battery on idle. This is at 75% brightness, and that works out to about 8 hours or so, 7.5 to 8 hours on idle. Then I'm doing some 1080p 60 YouTube here, and you can see that once again the usage is quite low. So only minus 7 watts on the battery, so we're getting about 300 minutes or so. So 1080p YouTube, you're going to get 4 to 5 hours or so watching that. Internet is not super fast, but it's not slow either. We're getting 300 downloads and about 230 uploads, so reasonable, nothing crazy. The SSD in here is a little bit slow, so it's just a SATA SSD here. For most people, that's going to actually be quite quick. It's still a SATA SSD. It's not a hard drive or anything like that. So for day-to-day use, especially for what this laptop is designed for, it probably won't be any of a hindrance whatsoever. But of course, you could just add in a faster SSD. Here's a look at the built-in webcam. It actually has a light that shines when the webcam's on, which is nice, so you can actually see if your device is recording you or not. Looks okay. Not the best lighting in here. It's quite dark behind me. Reasonable lighting in here. It's pretty late in the evening right now. And you can see here that the webcam is fine. Again, nothing crazy special with the webcam, but it's going to be totally serviceable if you're trying to do meetings and things like that. We'll see how the microphone sounds, if it's any good. But overall, looks okay. Nothing special, but it's fine. What do I think of this AceMagic laptop that I was sent? It's actually a lot better than I thought it would be, to be honest. Not because I have any issues with AceMagic. They actually sent me 2 mini PCs, and they were actually quite good. So, I mean, I should have anticipated that their laptop would be good. But, when a company moves into a laptop market, it's a brand new field. It's not as simple as, just putting components together and hopefully it works. You got screen, keyboard, all this kind of stuff. And to be honest, for what this is, it's actually pretty good. It's not going to be, the most powerful device. It's not going to be the most premium device, but it's very low cost. And despite being low cost, it actually is quite compelling. So all metal design, metal lid, metal bottom, inside also metal keyboard deck there. That alone right there is actually pretty rare. You pick up a lot of these budget business style laptops and they're all plastic. Definitely don't have like an import. They definitely don't have a keyboard deck that's metal. So I mean, that's pretty rare right there. That's quite nice. And then, the keyboard itself is pretty nice to type on. It's no ThinkPad, but it's nice. The audio is fine, nothing special, but better than I thought it would be, to be honest. Pretty good overall. Screen is good too. 1080p screen, quite bright, decent enough colors. It's not a professional screen for doing color accurate work, anything like that, but totally fine. Nice small bezels on it, bright enough. Webcam's fine, and the performance is adequate. So you're getting 16 gigabytes of RAM. Sure, it runs on single channel, but this is not a productivity powerhouse. This is not something we're going to be doing high-end 4K video editing or gaming or something like that. It's not meant for that. Yeah, if you're looking for something that's pretty compelling overall, this is actually a pretty good offering from AceMagic. I think it's their first laptop that they have, and I hope they do more because, I mean, they did a good job. There's nothing wrong with this laptop. So, pretty happy with this overall. I'm happy they sent it over. I think it's a decent buy for a lot of people.